Hello and welcome to Fall Equestria Reviews. I am your host, Enclave, and I'm joined with my other host, Afterglow.
Oh boy, it's a shitty chapter.
Yeah, it's a really long chapter, and it feels like nothing but filler. Like, there's probably two or three things that caught my attention this chapter, but other than that, it just feels like another 5, 6 episodes of Dragon Ball or Naruto that you didn't really need to have, but they just put it there to put it there. So you want to start off, or you want me to start it off?
Nah, you go for it.
Man, okay. So I'm just gonna brush onto the point where Little Pip and Homage, right? That's how you pronounce her name, Homage. So there's an H there, but you don't pronounce the H. And they'd start talking about some stuff, you know, the things that Homage reports on and how she reports it and stuff like that. So it kind of bleeds in from the previous chapter. So little Pip was just like concerned about the events that happened at Shatterhoof, right? Yeah.
What
So
about him?
so the battle, yeah, the big battle, the big baddie, and it's actually a good thing that I would say, if you're gonna mention something constantly, which she didn't like it, how Homage, well, at the time DJ Pone 3, but was describing a lot of the deeds and activities that the group was up to, and she didn't like it that she was giving a lot of credit just to her, the stable dweller, and she just set some of the stuff straight and all that stuff. And I don't know how she finds out about things besides having cameras in certain areas and locations, cameras in which we never see. So that's just a plot hole, I guess. So that's just something that I've always kind of was confused about because she talks about cameras and microphones, yet we never really see them. I know she has like some control of some sprite bots and stuff like that, but those things are loud, as described in chapter one. They could either be really loud or like they sneak up on you, as the raider who, well, not the raider, the slaver rather, the one that got his head totally blown off was describing them as. So it was just something I always think about reading the later chapters. And going back to what Little Pip was talking about with Homage, just straightening it out, like why she helped, some of the raiders there, and why she, took their side, and Homage, of course,
What?
is just like, oh, you know, she was like, oh, we only report on the news here with like the sources that we have. So of course, just like things that go on in a area, in a society, if you will, that doesn't have much other technology and other ways of passing down information and whatnot. A lot of things are going to be passed around word of mouth unless you directly see it, which she does have access to. But as mentioned before in the previous chapter, a lot of the cameras and microphones are busted, especially and conveniently in the areas in which that little Pip has to go to later in order to fulfill quests and try to check out. So that's always another writing device that KCAT uses, as well as you can also use. It's is it lazy? A little bit, but it's still a pretty good tool to use while writing your story. Having eyes and ears in places that you don't really need them to be in, but you're gathering information and whatnot, but not always having your eyes and ears in areas in which you really need to have, information and source gathering and whatnot. So just kind of thinking about it that way. Something that really bothered me, I guess. This is like, pardon me, I'm going through a cough and cold, so if I cough in this episode, forgive me. So what I was saying was that something that bothers me in this chapter is that relatively early on, they get a little intimate in the sense of like little Pip moving her mane out of her eyes. So what I get, right, and you can cut me off after I make this point if you're ready, is tell me you haven't been in a relationship without telling me you haven't been in a relationship kind of vibes. That's how I see these two, because I would never, and I mean never, unless they touch me first. But if I'm talking to a girl and I see some like her hair gets in her eyes, or just something that I can move to make things better or whatever, like basically touching them, um, you just don't do that on the first like date or hangout or whatever, because people are kind of like that. I don't know if it's like that too in the culture of the ponies and stuff like that, but that was just kind of weird. And I know later on in the chapters, like other moments where they have their conversations and whatnot, and they're kind of like talking as if like they already knew each other for such a long time. Yet at this current point, they've only like spoken to each other once. So that was just something that I gathered from their conversation. And of course, she puts her on for a MacGuffin of a quest. But if you want, go ahead and jump in there. Let's see.
Sounds like you're just a pussy, bro. You gotta get that mare.
Nah, man. I don't want to get bucked in the face.
You're just a coward.
Okay, so you're gonna go off and just touch the mare in her mane, the mane that she spent all morning getting ready.
No, she didn't. It's a little pip.
Nah, I'm saying in general, mare, bro.
Well,
Really? We're talking about mares and Little Pip's your first choice?
she just needs correction, man. We've been over this.
Oh my god. Anyways, so what
This is
else?
the lesbian rant that gets us canceled. Keep going.
Yeah, I know, right? Um, the other stuff, it's like I like Homage too as a character, because she, don't get me wrong, she glazes Little Pip. She glazes her, but she's like one of the few voices of reason, I think, in this entire damn story, besides Steel Hooves and Calamity. Everyone else just throws caution in the wind, or just like assumes things and assumes that. Yet, the few times where she does have conversations with Little Pip and later on the others, I feel like there is there is like a moment of just reason that other characters that should have that wisdom, should have that foresight, just don't have it, because again, they're just being naive or just throwing caution in the wind. Another good thing that I liked in these early on conversations, and we'll keep moving on, was this line right here. Hanging all your hopes on assumptions is gonna get you hurt. That is such a great line. And there's a few more good lines in this story that I've actually like used, whether if it's in everyday life or just my other stories that I've worked on, and just, general stuff. And that line just speaks so like well, because an assumption, as we know, is just making an ass out of you and me, instead of getting like clarity or something like that. And this story, I feel like this story has a lot of moments of assumptions that gets characters in bad situations and in predicaments in which they didn't really even need to be in. And one big thing that I will say that I get really annoyed, and I know I'm kind of jumping ahead a little bit. I don't like it when I know it's a tool that a lot of writers use to try to, I guess, speak to the main character, but it's having like other characters talk for, in their behalf, or speak, behind their backs, as if like, we don't know we're around the corner or whatever. And that just happens a lot with Little Pip. I feel like that happens more with Little Pip than it did with Blackjack. Granted, I will say this: I'm only on chapter what, like 20 something in Project Horizons, and there's been like a handful of moments where, characters do speak behind Blackjack's back, but I just feel like it's done so much more in vanilla Fallout than it does in Project Horizons. I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong. Go ahead.
I mean, it does happen pretty often in Project Horizons, but still, they got it from this. They learned it from watching Little Pit.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, like I said, if I'm jumping a little too early, then go ahead and jump in, but I, it's a lot of filter stuff, a lot of lore dumping, a lot of just talking about motivations and stuff that I just feels just so generic, and I just didn't really care for it. That's why I'm not really mentioning it too much here. But I, again, the main thing, at least in this chapter, was when um she goes back to the room, and of course Calamity and Velvet Remedy are talking about Little Pip's addiction, and they're speaking behind her back, of course, so no one likes that, especially when you're talking about a really like difficult subject that is addiction. And I think this is also one of the rare times where Little Pip like curses Velvet Remedy out directly. She does curse a lot in the story, whether if it's like generic curse words that we use ourselves or something more colorful that would be used in Equestria or at least in Little Pip's vocabulary. But here comes, Chad Calamity saying, we shouldn't be talking behind her back because Little Pip doesn't like betrayal. So it's crazy how Calamity, who's known Little Pip for, let's just say, a couple weeks, right? Is that like a fair assessment for a couple weeks?
I forgot how long it's been. I think we mentioned it before.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just gonna say a couple weeks because I know there was a big time skip when they made a little home base in the junction area where like all the train cars are and stuff. So like I know for sure a couple of days passed there. So I'm just gonna give the benefit of the doubt and say a couple to a few weeks. So 2 to 3 weeks have passed, and yet Calamity understands Little Pip more than Velvet Remedy does. And I understand that Velvet Remedy wasn't necessarily in the same crowd with Little Pip when they were growing older, because I believe she's a few years older than Little Pip. But you still know this, individual. You're still in the same stable as them. I'm sure you're gonna run into them quite a few times. And yet she just does these things that really upsets me. It's like they wrote her just to like not like her. Like K-Cat must have disliked somebody that has a lot of Velvet Remedy's like characteristics, because she, if you want us to like Velvet Remedy, I there's just more moments of dislike and just outright, I don't really care about them, rather than wow, like that's a a pretty good thing that she's doing and this and that. So that's just one part that really stuck to me in this chapter, was the conversation that they had about the addiction and pardon, about the addiction, and they made a play on words. Doctor Helping Hoof, I believe. So that's kind of like naming a real life Doctor Helping Hand, like Doctor Helping Hand. So I like the fact that there was a little fourth wall break right there with Little Pip saying like, "What kind of name is that?" And the remedy, right? The cure is only for the physical stuff. Velvet Remedy explains to Calamity that there isn't necessarily a cure for the psychological stuff. It's more towards the physical stuff, which when it comes to an addiction, like that's really not gonna do much, because when it comes to the funny ha-has, um, it is the psychological stuff that hurts you in the long run. It's all those things that hurt you in the long run, rather than the physical things. I mean, sure, you might have wounds, you might get diseases and stuff like that from the funny ha-has, and I know I'm not saying it because YouTube might have a field day of me saying certain words, but yeah, it's the psychological stuff that messes you up, because it legitimately warps your mind, and it puts you as like depending, on it. A dependent. That's the word. That's the word I was looking for. It gets you to the point where you're depending on these things, and that's the whole thing about addiction. You become addicted. You have to have it every single day. And for Little Pip to also, and this is another thing I was gonna mention, for her to say like, "Oh, I haven't taken the mentats," in like 2 days. Like if I was an addict, like I wouldn't be able to do that. And a lot of addicts say that. Oh, I haven't had a drink in 3, 4, 5 days. Oh, I haven't taken this or that, or 3 to 4 to 5 days. Oh, I haven't really smoked that in 3 to 4 or 5 days. Like that is typical like addict rhetoric behavior. So Little Pip clearly does have a problem.
Which
But
I
yeah.
want to add. Thanks, Calamity.
Oh,
Remember,
yeah.
it was Calamity I introduced you to it. I mean, I don't know how you wouldn't know it's an addictive thing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and I'm sure as somebody who's a caravan guard, um, sorry, as someone who's a caravan guard, probably doesn't actually like take it themselves, but they probably what is it? They probably see the merchants sell it. So I'm sure he saw the side effects, and just probably being in the wasteland for this long as well. I'm sure he's seen the side effects of these things. So, this is the part where I say, if you were to write your own story, right, dealing in this FOE universe, when it comes down to, you know, the enhancements, uppers, downers, or whatever, you would probably not know everything, right? Because it's just like the real world. The layman probably doesn't know, the effects of, let's say, bazooka, right? And I say bazooka because if you know, you know. They might not even know what that is, but those that know. But if you say, oh, yeah, this person's on smack, right? Some people might know what that is. If you say, oh, yeah, this person's smoking Reggie or Mary Jane, I'm sure a lot of people know what that is. Um, you can probably write it in that way, where like the more common stuff that's passed around, and let's just say used in establishments in which, bars, clubs, or whatever. Because if you're doing like an early story, there might not be like established clubs yet or stuff like that, but there might be like a watering hole or something of that nature, and maybe those things are getting sold there, as per usual. But if you have, let's say, a more established Fallout Equestria story, let's say it happened 25 years after this event or 50, 40 years, I don't know, I'm just throwing numbers out there, then it's safe to say that like more and more, wastelanders are going to know the effects of, this and that rather than, other things that aren't as common. So again, kind of think about that when you're writing your stories, because you can't write a Fallout story without having a few ha-has. Um, Anything you want to add there?
Man,
Damn, is this an Enclave episode where I talk the most?
Yeah, I hate this chat, bro. It's so fucking boring.
Dude,
I'm saving my rant for the funny.
oh,
we got a while ago.
you mean like the last 5 minutes of the damn episode?
It's almost like nothing really happens until the end. I don't know, man.
Yeah, I mean, we have fights and stuff, so they go looking for this MacGuffin.
It's our record, right?
It's the record, but the thing is, they're gonna get a MacGuffin out of it because they're looking for a certain part and this and that. So of course, again, Little Pip goes to talk to Homage, and she's like, "Oh well, if I tell you this, you're gonna go get it," and like da 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 da. And they go back and forth, and then Little Pip's like, "Oh, tell me," which again, it's kind of goes back to what I said earlier. Tell me you have been in a relationship without telling me you haven't been in a relationship. Most people will probably find that annoying. I don't care who you are. They just do, but it is what it is. So yeah, little Pip gets on this little adventure to go find some records, and we get to the point where they go to the what is it? They cross these buildings, right? Which again differs from how Fallout 3 is in the sense of like what's around 10 Penny Tower. I know I said 10 Pony Tower, but in 10 Penny,
Damn this man.
no, I'm talking about the game right now. In 10 Penny Tower, there's literally nothing around at all. Like it's just hills, and then as you get closer to the tower, there's like a little bit of cars and stuff destroyed, and of course like there's a road, and there's a wall around the tower. and I think it was like a vacation area or something like that, which kind of looks pretty lame, but Bethesda doesn't really do very well when it comes to world building. Yeah, I said it. Um, so in the story though, in this story, there are, it feels like 10 Pony Tower is actually around like other ruins. So I find that more interesting because this is legitimately a safe zone within the ruins. So they go to other buildings because they're going to this area, which they're going to go find the records. And the records are demos of Scootaloo singing that were never released. So they split off because they want to cover more ground. But what happens is that Calamity and Steel Hooves go above while Velvet Remedy and Little Pip go a little bit below. And this is where this happens. So Velvet Remedy, again, being written so we don't like her, starts being flirtatious towards Little Pip, right? And Little Pip,
Oh shit.
yeah,
Here we go.
yeah. This is the line that I was like, good on you, girlfriend, slay. There, she at first was like, oh wow, this is actually happening, but then she's like, wait a minute. She's like, you're not doing this genuinely. Like, you're doing this to, get back at Calamity, because she knows Calamity likes her. And Velvet Remedy, her MO for a few times was to be flirtatious in order to make others jealous.
Again.
Yeah. So they go a little bit back and forth, right? And Velvet Remedy throws it at Little Pip and like, oh, how dare you, and this and that. Like, I actually do like you, and this and that. And Little Pip was like not having any of it. She's like, no. She tells her, you are too perceptive to not know I've had a crush on you, and don't get to play with me just to annoy with Calamity. So she puts her in her place. She does. And she, gets mad, of course, because she's right. She's right. And good on KCAP for this type of writing, because had I known, going off the patterns here of what's been going on in the story, Little Pip, would have been ecstatic and, would have gone 110,000% simp mode at that point. But no, she puts her hoof down. And she says, like, no. Like, you're way too perceptive. Like, you know I like you. You know I've always had a crush on you. You know I've always looked at you that way. You know this, you know that. And it's not because I haven't told you, because, yes, Little Pip's never directly told Velvet Remedy, but it's the actions that she's had. It's the feelings that she's had, And anybody with any type of self-respect, and I would make this suggestion to you as a side note. As a little side note here, if someone ever does this to you, right? You've given them attention, you've done this, you've done that, you've done some acts of service, you've been a good person, right? Not being a nice guy or a nice girl, but like you're actually being a good person because you're actually kind. And they just kind of string you along and kind of play with you, but then all of a sudden, and this because, again, people do this because it is what it is. They like to have a backup plan. They like to have that settled thing. They start getting flirtatious to you and this and that. And if it's genuine, maybe it took them a little bit of time, but if it's genuine, then fine, go for it. Or you have to make that call, because I don't know the details of every person's story out here. But if you know that they've just been playing with you and, you're sending them text messages, they're not responding or whatever, any type of correspondence, because let's be honest here, everyone's on their phone nowadays. Everyone has an iWatch or a Samsung Watch or whatever. So people are getting those text messages. And I've said this before, I think on a previous episode, or maybe even something else that I was on another podcast, but I'm in EMS, right? I work 12+ hour shifts. I still manage to text my friends and family, within the hour that they text me. So it is not an excuse for other people. And I get it. There are some times in which you are actually busy for 2, 3, 4+ hours because there's something crazy that happened at work. But believe me, I've been in environments and in situations which you have like a good 10, 15 minutes to take a quick break because things do get wild. You need to kind of take a breather, you know, and that's sometimes those moments in which I do that. I think I've had a handful of times where I never replied to a text message or an email or whatever, for a couple hours later, but not a full on whole shift. So if someone's doing that to you, cut them loose. Going back to Little Pip, um, she didn't even need to be on the Mentats to even see that. And I like that. This just shows character growth and character development, and I hope that she carries this on for later chapters and K-Cat doesn't forget. Is there anything you want to add to this?
I hate Velvet Remedy so much. She's a bitch, and I'm glad she calls her out, even if she forgives her like 5 minutes later.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. So
Because she's still a simp at heart.
yeah, she is, and that's probably her downfall. She is too nice. She's a nice mare. So
Well, I want all the mares fuck her. She's so nice.
yeah, I'm such a nice mare. Why doesn't no stallions or mare looks at me? Like that's probably why, because you're too nice. Either learn the hard way or you never learn at all and just be a doormat for the rest of your life. But besides all this stuff and some little action scenes here and there, which I will say it's pretty funny that Steel Hooves is still using um, explosive ordnance in small confined spaces. Because he might not be affected as much from shrapnel and debris because he's wearing power armor, but I'm sure Calamity is like dipping left and right in order not to get hit. So that those like images in my mind are hilarious to me because there is like there are firefights going on. Little Pip makes note that they've engaged something because they don't know exactly. And yeah, it's it's the part. It's the part. It's the Pinkie Pie part. You want to take a hold of that?
Oh, nah, man. Why you gotta make me do it?
Because I've been talking for the past like 25+ minutes. They got to hear somebody else.
All right, I'll try and remember the details. Because I tapped out during this part. I've heard it too many times. But yeah, once she tells Velvet to fuck off, she leaves the room, and of course, Pip immediately gets high as shit so she can hack into this terminal. And when she gets on it, she finds a recording that was from Pinkie Pie to go to Twilight. And it falls off of, which chapter was it where she saw the memory of the party?
Yeah.
Do you remember?
Yeah.
I don't remember which chapter that was, but it's one of the recent chapters where we saw the memory of the party, where Ty and Pinkie fought. I don't think it said how long this message was recorded after that.
It's a pretty long message because she gets interrupted, and it's kind of correlates what happens later on in the message.
Ugh, hold on.
You're dying.
No dead air.
I'm dying here too physically.
I've actually got to pull up this section in the chapter, so.
Okay. Cue the Jeopardy music. Too
bad you're editing this all out.
Yeah, somewhat.
Now I gotta find which part of the chapter because Pinkie is mentioned 44 times in this chapter.
If you want to, just look up if you're looking for a keyword, look up balloon, because that's when she mentions the I want them to know that I'm coming. You know, the Steel Rangers as well as the Ministry of Morale's agents. Which, in all honesty, when she mentions that part in the recording, I think that's what sealed the fate of Equestria. Because I'm not gonna.
That Pinky's fault. It's not Pinky's fault. I know which main six sealed the fate of a question. It wasn't her.
Well, okay.
We all know what I'm talking about. Come on.
Yeah, those that actually read ahead know. But in this case, I'm not gonna pretend I'm military or whatever. But I've read some books, I've watched some movies, I've played plenty of video games, and sure, I'll toss in the fact that I've played some strategy games. And I will say that if you're ever going to attack an enemy, you don't want them to know your every move. And the fact that she says, "Oh yeah, put the Steel Rangers as well as my agents in a balloon so they know we're coming," it's just really dumb. You know, especially when there's, at least with the information that they're working with, they know that the zebras have snuck in, you know, a WMD in Manhattan. So you would probably want to be as covert as possible to not let them know that, you know what's going on, so they don't ignite it. But that's how close she was. It's legitimately how close she was into foiling that plan. And you can talk about the message as you find it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm still doing the start. Alright, so since Pilot's a little mad for her being high all the time, she talks about how she's finally gonna get help at a clinic. But I mean, I don't know if it would have worked because they would have just used whatever the fuck this world's fixer is. I don't remember what they renamed the funny fixer him to. But yeah, the shit with the Steel Rangers happens.
Mm-hmm.
And we get very funny irony.
Yep. And we also get what was I gonna say? We get the sad part about it. Towards the end of the message, it states that connection to the terminal in which she was trying to send it to failed. So Twilight never got the message that Pinkie Pie wanted to receive help for her addiction. And we also know that moments after this message was sent, the zebras, as well as their allies within Manhattan, were able to detonate the Balfire, the Mega Spell.
Even if that message had sent, I don't think Twilight really had time to listen to it. So.
Oh, we don't know. I mean, we don't know.
I mean, I know. Because I remember what happens with Twilight.
Yeah.
But,
Well, I mean, I do too. But at least, what is it?
Shit was going down at this point. We jumped ahead a lot in the timeline for the war.
Yeah. I think it's more.
I think there's another instance of the load being blown a little early.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. It's just the way I was.
I wouldn't ever put this for like another 20 chapters, but that's just
true.
Because this is like finding out endgame shit.
Yeah. And I mean, I think this is the problem, right? Going back to the parts in which we would write differently and all that stuff. And also, it's with the current time, right? Current time, fan fiction writing, we don't have to include the main six in order for it to be successful. we don't have to include important characters in the show in order to make it successful. We don't have to shoehorn, Shirley or Octavia or Vinyl Scratch,
We've
Celestia,
been over
Luna.
this before.
Yeah, and
You know, Matt,
that's
you really think the main 6 during a war have been sitting on their asses?
no, and most definitely not. And it probably would have made it more of a sad story if like some of them fell in the war or like were casualties of, let's say, attacks in Equestria, because they're constantly working, they're constantly doing this, whether there would have been more of them on the front lines or just some of them overworking and this and that. Like, you can write a different story. Personally, I think that, because the way I'm writing mine, in this set alternative universe, entirely alternative universe, is that some of the main 6 are already gone, and some of them, are either working, like whether they're working in the intelligence or they're doing stuff with projects or working with the princesses, military, or whatever. They're doing that. Some of them are on the front line, etc., etc. But going back to what I was saying earlier, I think the sadness, yes, like you said, there's some sadness there in the sense that the message wasn't sent, but there's no closure for Pinky, right? Because we know based off of what we see in the room, because little Pip again describes it. She finds a skeleton, and
Classic.
yeah, the classic. She finds a skeleton. Environmental storytelling. And she finds the little miniature of Twilight, right? So, we obviously know what happened to Pinky. There's no assumptions to be had. And going back to the message thing, the only thing why I feel bad about it is simply put, if she saw that message, like couldn't connect to server or whatever, that just has more weight on Pinkie Pie, right? Because for her, it's like, oh my god, that message never got sent, and a few moments later, all hell breaks loose. But if the message is at least sent, and then all hell breaks loose, she can at least go in peace knowing that that message was sent, and the probability of Twilight reading that message increases. But the fact that it wasn't sent, and it's it wasn't sent, and the server's down and all this other stuff, that just means more sadness, towards Pinkie Pie. So that's what I was getting at. I know it took me a whole like 5 minutes to explain it, but if you want to write it as a tragedy, then sure, you could do that. But if you were trying to write it as a tragedy and have like a false sense of hope, you could write it that way too, where at least the message got sent. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Anything else you want to say about that?
I still think it would have been better if we knew about like what happened at Twilight. So like, I don't remember when we found out, but I'm pretty sure it's much later.
Yeah, I think it's another like 10 plus chapters, and I do agree with
Sounds
you.
about right.
Yeah, I do agree with you. This is another moment of just blowing your load way too early when it comes to this kind of storytelling. This is something, yeah, maybe like a few chapters before we find out what happened to Twilight, we should probably know what happened to Pinkie Pie. Or if you really want to like insert main characters and this and that, then try to do it differently. But again, I kind of understand where K-Cat's coming from, because in order for your story to be successful back in the day, you had to insert main 6 characters every few chapters, or else people didn't care. Like like little Pip is popular nowadays, but back then, I mean, it was still an idea that was still like coming up in the world. Yeah.
Yep. Well, yeah, I know you love your Doom Terminal entry.
Yeah, I mean, I liked it. I can only say I agree with you what you said there. It should have been done a lot later.
All right, what's next? Are we done with the Doomer?
Yeah, it's pretty much it. I mean, they find the safe, at least Steelhooves did. They couldn't open it because Calamity can't open it, and Steel Hooves couldn't open it as well. So I think it's one of the more lighthearted moments where he's just dragging the safe around, just dragging it around. So that was pretty funny. Yeah, little Pip having her mind still fresh on what was going on took a few tries to open the safe, and sure enough, she found the records. I think that's pretty much it for that part, because they go back to the way that they were coming from. And you want to talk about the mad scientist part, because it's pretty much what happens after.
Hold on, I think we're missing something.
What am I missing? What am I missing here?
Oh yeah, we forgot to mention, this is before she listened to the recording, but she got the Twilight statue.
Oh.
Be smart or some bullshit.
Yeah.
I don't know how many she has now, but I think it's like at least 3.
3 of them. First one was Applejack. Second one was Rarity.
I think.
Yeah, it was Rarity. And this one is Twilight. And I believe this is when she mentions, like, she kind of sees the world a little bit more clearly. Like, not as foggy as she...
Yeah, I wonder why the statues do that. I can't wait to know.
Yeah. I wonder why. And I wonder what kind of writing tool K-Cat's using for that, too. So, very interesting. Interesting indeed. But,
that's crazy.
Yep.
Yeah, then they go do the shit.
Yep. They find the mad scientist, and conveniently, they also find out what happened to the mare that escaped those raiders that were chasing her from the previous chapter, the chapter where Calamity murked all those raiders, including that cult. So I kind of chuckled a little bit at this chapter, only because why didn't they make sure that the mare was safe? She got captured again, so obviously you can tell that this is not the brightest mare in the tool shed.
Which mare is this again? I know what I know, sir, but where did they first meet her?
They first met her when she was running away from the raiders that did no-nos to her. And Calamity...
Oh, when he blasted that coal?
Yeah. And then, like, Velvet Remedy was like, like, got all mad about it. And I'm like, bruh, out of everyone that you shouldn't be mad at are probably people that commit those types of crimes. But, you're one of those. So, yeah. Little Pip sees her. And Mad Scientist over here was experimenting on the ponies. Find out that he's the one that's has his hoof in the creation of the chimeras. He's trying to find out, like, the perfect chimera, the perfect poison, all that kind of stuff. So
Yep.
That happens, right?
And the funniest about that.
Yeah, and this is okay. So you can take you can take the wheel on this once I say, why would you ever decide to turn on a memory orb when danger's around the corner? That's like the equivalent of you turning on a YouTube video on your phone in full blast while there's like a horde of zombies around the corner. Like, they're gonna hear it, they're gonna know, and they're gonna check that corner because they're obviously gonna be attracted to the noise. So go ahead and you explain this part, because I did not like it. So go ahead.
Oh, are we talking about the memory now?
You could talk about the memory orb and also, like, just the stupidity of turning it on, like, while the mad scientist is, like, cackling and whatever. So yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, right next to him, just like, this is a perfect time to watch this memory. But yeah, she goes into a memory. And here's the kicker. As far as I can tell, she goes into the memory of a motherfucking camera. Please, if you can even guess on how it's possible to take memories out of like a recording, how does that work?
Not a
Like
clue,
you already
man.
have the recording. Why would you need to take it out of memory? You could just play that recording on like a terminal or something. Why would you need to do it in a memory orb, even if you could?
Not a clue, man. Not a clue.
It'll never be explained, trust me, because it never happens again. But yes, in this camera's memory, we see that the CMC are arguing, and we get another funny blowing your load a little early with these reveals, because we find out that they are the ones making the stables and doing the classic social experiments going wrong. So, I think that's pretty stupid. I don't see why the CMC would grow up to be complete assholes. They just want to do funny experiments. I don't think that's ever really explored, but they are.
Yeah,
What do
you're
you
not
think
wrong.
about it?
You're not wrong. I don't understand it either. I don't see their character ever doing that. I don't see them ever like even attempting to be like that. Like you would have to write them in such a way that it built up to being these evil, you know, individuals that want to do said experiments to the ponies that they're supposed to be protecting. Because it just doesn't make any sense. You're right. It completely doesn't make any sense because, you know, they kind of just like toss it on us. If there were other like recordings or memory orbs or whatever that like is leading up to them doing it, I have an easier time believing it. But just to jump to that, where we go from barely getting much information about them to, oh, they were the ones that wanted to conduct the experiments and all that, just doesn't make any sense to me. And even if they were to do something like this, you would have to write them in such a way that, okay, yeah, I could see them doing that. Or the other part being like, they wanted to help, yet while trying to, what is it, paving the road with good intentions could lead to like bad situations. That can also be a thing. That can also be a factor. Um, I didn't believe it. So yeah, I'm with you as well. I'm with you as well when it came to that.
I mean, Skrull was like the only one right against doing the experiment.
Yeah.
But I guess the others just don't give a shit.
Yeah, because like even in Fallout 1 and 2, you don't really know like who gave the green light to the experiments, right? Like you don't really know who did it. There's like whispers here and whispers there about it, but it just leaves it up to interpretation. And the same thing happens for like all the other games. You know, you get some lore like later on about like just dumb experiments and like other things that are happening, but we're never like outwardly told, hey, this is why this is happening. This is why that's happening. You know, uh, deal with it, right? It's not until the show happened in which, I mean, Bethesda and Todd say it's canon, so I guess this is canon now. Uh, we find out, we find out that this was all planned out, and for those that haven't seen this show and want to watch the show, spoiler alert, I'll give you a good 3 seconds before I tell you what happens. So 3, 2, 1. All right, so spoilers here. Um, yeah, Vault-Tec was behind everything. Vault-Tec legitimately dropped the nukes on America because they wanted to get paid, which is like, I think the dumbest like plot point in the show. Uh, it's really dumb. Maybe if I know there was like other sub elements about like having power and always having power over, you know, people and this and that, which probably could have been better if it was written a bit better as well. But yeah, uh it's just dumb. Oh, we wanted to make sure our investors got their money back, so that's where we're gonna drop nukes on our country and destroy, our country and probably the entire world too, because it does leave into interpretation that the rest of the world might have not been hit as hard as we think it did. So maybe this is the great grand experiment of like America as well as your neighbors getting completely destroyed and the rest of the world just watches. But who knows? We don't know because we're not that far yet. So with the introduction of the fan fiction that is Fallout London, we finally got a different spot of the world that we see, at least in the 3D area. If you are a true Chad and have played Fallout Sonora, you get to see what happens in Mexico. So
Oh,
yeah,
what the fuck is Fallout Sonora? What the fuck?
it's a mod for Fallout 2 in which a Russian, I believe it's a Russian um, developer created on his own. I could be wrong. It's either Russian or Chet's. I could be wrong, but there's like a few of them out there. There's a Russian develop. There's one Russian guy. There's a few Ukrainians, and there's a few like Czech developers that have created their own Fallout 2 mods, in which they've done Sonora, Olympus, what is it, Resurrection, a few others as well. But they're done in the Fallout 2 engine, so they're not as well known as, let's say, Fallout London or Fallout the Frontier. Oh my god, what an interesting project that was.
You name the mod that shall not be named.
Not that shall not be named, sure. I it's not even the bullcrap that happened in the background that upsets me about the mod. It's the fact that they glazed the courier so much. You obviously know that the main storyline, they chose NCR no matter what, even though they're like probably one of the weaker factions in the Wasteland. Granted, we didn't see like the full vision of the NCR as well as even the Legion and all this other stuff because, Bethesda being Bethesda, they rushed Black Isle Studio to complete Fallout New Vegas. So who knows? We could have probably seen a way more developed story on both sides and all that kind of stuff. But that's a story for a different time. Going back to what I was saying earlier, Scootaloo, Sweetie Belle, and Apple Bloom are all having a discussion in which we have to do experiments in the vaults. And again, I don't know why. Was it a higher up that told them? Was it only they themselves that wanted to do this? And like, how did, out of everyone in Equestria, how did they get the power to make these types of decisions? I mean, the main six is still around. The princesses, yes, I know they're really busy, but they're also still around. So it's just to put this giant responsibility on the back of the CMCs, like, it's just weird. But that's all I have for that. Anything you got for that? Anything else?
I mean, I already said it's stupid.
Yeah. But that's pretty much it.
But yeah, then the funny happens where she, surprise, surprise, she wakes up tied to a little medical table, like cupcakes or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, imagine my shock.
Imagine my shock entirely. It's just...
Isn't she supposed to be smarter when she's on Mintills? Like, come on.
Yeah, I think this was just like a poor attempt at like having her captured. I don't know what else I could have...
It doesn't even matter if she's captured though, because it's over in 20 seconds.
Yeah. 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 And again, for...
And we didn't get to do any funny correction while she's tied down.
Nope. The mad ghoul scientist is again monologuing as per usual as a villain. Could have had an interesting backstory to him, and everything else, but no. The mayor that got captured escapes and legitimately crushes the ghoul mad scientist pony. So we don't really get to know much more about him besides that.
And I love the kind of man that'll actually just kill me.
Yeah, no, a good thing I guess that was written, or one of the more interesting things that was written on this part was that she only stopped stomping on the ghoul's body once little Pip hugged her and told her that everything's gonna be okay, and that's pretty much it.
Oh man, we all need a mare to hug us and tell us it'll be okay.
Yeah, a man can dream, but not in this current freaking crappy timeline we live in. But yeah, that pretty much happens, and I hope that this time around, little Pip makes sure that this mare is safe in some type of settlement, because obviously she got captured a second time around, so won't be as lucky and be used as a rider's device and probably end up in a very bad place. But hey, that's neither here or there. Um, we go back to 10 Pony Tower, and we deliver the records to...
Nah, you're skipping, Chief.
What did I skip?
A random watcher conversation out of nowhere. It's not even explained where she finds them, I'm pretty sure. I think they just touch them talking.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, that's probably why I forgot about it, because it was just poorly delivered. My bad. Not even like a good pizza. It was just poorly delivered. So go ahead.
But yeah, little Pip somehow finds a watcher and they start chatting, and then it's just another short one because they just talk about virtues. It's like, oh, I've seen all these messed up versions of virtues. How do I know which one's right? Like, oh, you gotta have friendship. And Pip realizes, like, 17 touches in, that she does in fact have friends. So good for her.
Wow. That's fun.
I don't know why it took her to watch her telling her to realize that she does in fact have friends, but okay.
It's almost like they've been hanging out with each other for the last couple of weeks.
And then they get back to 10 Pony Tower.
Yep.
They get their crest award with the flux capacitor or whatever it is.
Yes, the MacGuffin.
So now they can fly. They gotta walk all their asses all the way back.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, there is I did forget to mention that she does talk to Monterey Jack about, like, why he confessed and this and that, and in her mind she's like, surely you knew that by confessing you're putting yourself out there and legitimately putting your neck out there for it to get chopped off, but he's just like, I don't know, like, I keep my word, I'm too honest for my own good. So if we didn't have Steel Hooves, and I feel like Monterey Jack was supposed to be a main character, but then K-Cat changed her mind. So is mine. I don't know. Still not confirmed in current year, but
99% residue.
Probably. I don't know. I don't really care. But yeah. He's just kind of going back and forth, just saying, like, I don't lie, I'm honest, and this and that. So I kind of feel like Monterey Jack was supposed to be written as like one of the main characters, but then we'll get another couple of them as we go more into the story. So they're like, they're probably not gonna fit in the vision, so I'm just gonna legitimately kill them off. So they get their little MacGuffin thing so they can finally fly. And yeah, it's pretty much it for the chapter.
I, for one, am happy that Monterey Jack gets killed off. No, it's not, son.
Well, you could take over, because like I legitimately kind of just blanked out after the whole like memory or BS.
Well, they go to Homage and give her the records, and Homage doesn't want to reveal her secret identity to the rest of the party. Which makes it even weird that she did that for Pip, like, immediately. But then Pip goes up to Homage and she's like, hey, you see any cute mares on those cameras that might want some fuck? And then Homage is like, oh, I might want some fuck, and then it ends. So like the chapter after she's introduced, Pip is already getting with Homage. That's good character writing right there.
Yeah, I think going back to what I said about Monterey Jack, how he was supposed to be like a main character, I think Homage was just kind of written really fast in there, because there's like not any character development whatsoever, And I guess just to go out on a limb here, right? You could totally disavow me. And on why I think K-Cat isn't who they say they are, right? I'm looking at you, Wub. So in my experience, the good girls don't want to rush into anything, right? They don't want to rush into anything. They like their love stories like an actual like story or written story. That's why a lot of them they play the long game, right? There was no long game here. You know, Little Pip and Homage are already like, yeah, we're gonna be a thing as soon as they laid eyes on each other. Don't get me wrong. I know there's certain people that do that. They meet them for the first time and like, oh, this person's gonna be my husband or this person's gonna be my wife and this and that. But a good chunk of others don't do that. So yeah, that's how I kind of know that K-Cat might not say who or sorry. That's how I know that K-Cat isn't who they say they are. Because most females, femoids, or whatever you want to call them, they don't rush into relationships. At least the good ones. I just offended so many people. I just offended so many people.
Well, we already know you hate lesbians, so it's fine.
I don't. I just don't like how they're poorly written in this story. I told you, had Little Pip been straight and would have been lusting over stallions and like literally that's all her character is, I would have disliked that character trait as much as the other ones. Just how Velvet Remedy is a jackass a lot of the times.
Classic. But yeah, since we're talking about the skills at the end now, I guess she maxes out science somehow from that one terminal in the whole chapter, I guess. And she gets more action points, whichever that breaks called, probably action Philly or some bullshit.
Yeah. Yeah, I think she just reads like some books of the arcane sciences or whatever because there's a note. Again, this is one of those passing things I forgot to mention. Rarity mentions to Twilight, and this is like, again, we're jumping a lot of times into different timelines, so going back and, you know, whether it's in the past, the future, in the present, whatever. She mentions to Twilight about like sending the books because Homage does make her little home up there where there's like a lot of books and stuff, and I guess Twilight, that was one of her little bases at the time, had a bunch of those books, so that's how she got the skills because Rarity mentions, oh, I sent you a shipment of these, you know, not our ideology stuff that was supposed to be burned. So that's probably why, because she even mentions it when she's reading the arcane science books. The more in quotes modern editions take out a lot of stuff, but like the older stuff has everything. So I think that's why her science level went up.
All right, cool. Well, incorrect anatomy count is 0. I think I was tapping out some parts, so I might be wrong. But 3 out of 10 chapter, pretty trash.
Yeah, this is probably one of those chapters where I give it a below 5. I'm gonna say like a 4 out of 10, and 4.5 out of 10. And the only reason why I don't even give it a 5 out of 10 is because this legitimately feels like another filler. Like we could have narrowed this down a lot more. We didn't have to have these weird like lore dumps. And I think this is where this story suffers, is that there's quite a few chapters in which these lore dumps occur. And we don't need them. We don't really need them. It's best to show rather than to tell. Again, at least in my eyes, the best parts of the story so far is the memory orbs, some of the lore and terminal stuff that gets dropped, but the the way it's delivered could be done better. Whether if it was just done where characters are speaking while they're doing something, or just like if it has the proper context of what's going on, like, yeah, that makes more sense. But it's just when it's just a terminal and you're reading it, it feels really heavy. It's different compared to you actually playing the game and reading a terminal, because again, you're interacting with the story. And if you're in locations and stuff like that, it gives you the story. But in this one, it just feels really heavy. So I don't know if I made sense there, but that's like the weak part of this story so far.
The weak part is that Velvet Remedy hasn't been shot dead yet.
Well, yeah, I mean, she's also an issue too. And again, I think K-Cat wrote her in such a way in which she probably didn't like someone that was like Velvet Remedy. So I'm probably why
Who
she.
hurt you, J-Cat?
Yeah, who hurt you? Tell us. We'll take their knees away. We'll take their kneecaps away, boss.
The finale will be the K-Cat therapy session.
Oh my god. Yeah, there's gonna be a lot to say after this story's done. I again, it's a product of its time. If it was written now, probably wouldn't be as popular. But back then, everyone was talking about it. And there's still a subsection of the fandom that really adores it. Thank you for whoever the anon is that posts our videos on the thread. I really appreciate that. Also appreciate the fact that you guys are still commenting on the videos. Recently, we got one from the video that went up today on August 11th. And
hated the video so hard, we're fucked. It's over.
I know, it's still over. But this is from Mares164. So great vid as always. And then he mentions this is in context of part 8. So I believe we were speaking about some stuff. So he actually time date stamps it. So that's pretty good. That's how I know you watched the whole thing. So I really appreciate it, man. So he mentions that the stable is in one of the main Haven suburbs, so it makes sense why vinyl is there. So I think that's the question we were asking, like, oh, why is vinyl in this specific stable? Then he mentions in hour and 5 minutes, it might come from Project Horizons or some other fic, but I think it's mentioned somewhere that you can either extract or record a memory so you can both remember it and have an orb. Also, if you find the memory magic stuff interesting, you should definitely read Murky number 7. So
oh no, here we go again.
Mambo number 9.
No.
Yeah, we're probably gonna have to do that one. That's the second time someone's mentioned it. Kind of surprised.
You want to do more reviews? Oh man, you're crazy.
Hey, we could do one of those like big ones if you want. If you want to have like a bi-weekly thing.
I'm never reading it.
All right, fine, I'll do it by myself. Anyways, kind of surprised if you haven't read it. It's one of the best in the big 5. There are a lot of different stuff about memory magic, and it's very well used. So hey, we might actually go ahead and look at that if it's done better. This is hour 22 minutes 10 seconds for the SPP. Both names are used, if I remember well. It was originally the Single Pony Project, but the Enclave propaganda changed it to Pegasus. Oh yeah, the towers and stuff like that.
Well, I give them credit. We find out what the Single Pegasus Project is a lot faster. We find out what Project Horizons is, because I'm in chapter like 60 something. I still don't know what Project Horizons is.
That's crazy. So they named an entire story about a project in which not even mentioned it yet. That's wild.
It's like the main quest line, bro, but it's very, very, very slow.
And then lastly, hour and 34 minutes 55 seconds, and I believe that's when we see Mares, and it says I love them. So
I like this guy.
Yeah, thank you Mares164. Hope to see you again. Wub has also dropped a lot of comments, but I believe we touched bases on those. If we missed anything, we'll go back, of course, and correct that. Thank you, Wub, as per usual. I know you're one of those people that watches pretty much every video and leaves a comment there. Also, thank you to the other subscribers. We're almost at that special 200 moment, so I really appreciate how much you guys have.
If we get to 1,000 subscribers, we will definitely do Project Horizons. No clickbait.
Wow. I'd be happy if we get to 500 subscribers, but hey, I mean, I don't really mind it. You know, we got some people listening. I'm just surprised we have a lot of people listening to this stuff, even though it's like, what, 10 plus years old now? Followed Equestria? So
it came out 2011. It's almost 15 years old. It's closer to 15 than 10.
Oh my gosh. So yeah, I'm just surprised that there's like people constantly watching this stuff, and the thread is always active. So glad to see you guys still there too as well. But yeah, if there's anything else, like you guys want to like see or watch or whatever, just go ahead and leave a comment below. But yeah, it's just oh, speaking of the thread, we got a U. You want to I just refreshed the page and it's okay. So
I'm talking to you on this.
I mean, it's rare. Most of the time, people don't really give much use to the thing. But it says right here, as I said, thank you to the anon that posted, it's like there is a new review up from our boys at the Mares and stuff, and they of course added the link in the picture that was posted the last time they posted it, and the U comes from this guy. He says, "Is this whole thing bait?" It's like they're acting like they haven't read the story before, with how much shit they straight up don't know and or forgot. I don't know the first thing about writing reviews or making videos, and I feel like I could make a way better review on my own with how embarrassingly inept those two are.
You know what my response to that is? You want to do better, go ahead. No one's stopping you.
That is
I'll be
true.
the first one to listen to it.
That is true. I will say the same thing as they always say, because the board rarely delivers. So thank you for giving our fan a U, and go ahead and do your own review. I mean, we're just playing it dumb because we have to play dumb. We're not going to blow our loads as early as KCAT does for a story, you know, and other things too. Again, if we ever miss anything, or you guys think that we should have talked about something a little bit more in depth, I've always said it, hey, leave a comment below. We've read pretty much every single comment from each episode that we've done. So, yeah, that's pretty much all it is right there. But yeah, is there anything else you want to add, or we're done here?
Oh, please let us be done.
Yeah, I think you and I are both like not feeling very well. You probably can hear us from our voices. But yep, that was chapter 17. I know chapter 18 is a lot better, so we'll get back to you with that. And as always, thank you all for listening. Thank you all for interacting with the channel. Hopefully we'll get to the big 200 very soon, and we'll see you on the next one. Night, and have a good one.
Mares.